In the year 331 BC, on the vast, sun-scorched plains of Mesopotamia, the destiny of two great empires was about to be decided. The Macedonian king, Alexander the Great, driven by a vision of forging a dominion that would span the known world, was prepared to confront the Persian king of kings, Darius III. Their armies faced each other, simmering with tension, determined to carve their names into history. To fully grasp the magnitude of this conflict, one must first understand the forces that guided these two extraordinary leaders to the cusp of battle. Alexander, having succeeded his father, King Philip II of Macedon, inherited a fierce and disciplined army. Under Philip's reforms, Macedon's military had evolved into a remarkable engine of conquest. Its phalanx was equipped with the long sarissa spear, a weapon that lent Macedonian infantry an intimidating reach. Its cavalry, comprised of nobility and hardened companions, served as the swift fist of Alexander's army. Meanwhile, he had at his disposal agile light infantry units, cunning skirmishers, and specialized engineers capable of siegecraft. This fusion of infantry, cavalry, and support contingents was molded into a fierce war machine, honed through campaigns in Greece and Thrace, and then tested further by Alexander's lightning campaign across Asia Minor. On the other side stood the vast Persian Empire, still a formidable presence despite recent defeats. Darius III was not oblivious to the threat Alexander posed. Having witnessed how swiftly the Macedonian armies advanced, capturing key Persian cities and defeating Persian satraps, the King of Kings mustered a mighty host. Cavalry from Bactria, infantry from the heartland of Persia, archers from the Median hills, and levies from the far reaches of the empire streamed to Darius's call. The Persian army's numbers alone loomed over the Macedonians like a colossal tidal wave. Darius was determined to overwhelm his young adversary with sheer mass, combined with war elephants and scythed chariots, terrifying contraptions armed with rotating blades on their wheel hubs. Yet, as the ranks of both armies converged, each man, be he Macedonian, Greek, or Persian, felt the shifting weight of fate. It was not just a clash of armies, it was the collision of two distinct worlds and ideologies. Alexander, in his heart, harbored the dream of uniting the East and West under his leadership. Darius, in turn, faced the daunting prospect of saving a centuries-old empire from collapse. This was no ordinary war. It was a historical cataclysm that threatened to reshape the political, cultural, and spiritual landscape of the ancient world. Though both generals attempted negotiations at various points in the past, the time for words had long passed. Alexander had already refused Darius's offers of gold and territory, seeing in them neither a fair concession nor an honorable end. He believed his own destiny was to stand triumphant as the undisputed master of Asia, while Darius, weighed down by the expectations of the empire, braced for a battle of epic dimensions. Each man fixed his gaze upon Gaugamela, a seemingly nondescript plain near the Tigris River. Yet, it was this terrain that Darius, convinced of his superiority in numbers and chariotry, had chosen for its open space, hoping to maximize the advantage of his thousands of cavalry and specialized war machines. As the Macedonians approached from the west, the sight that awaited them was breathtaking. The Persian camp was massive, a sprawling city of tents and banners shimmering beneath the morning sun. Rumors circulated that Darius had flattened and leveled the field to ensure a smooth surface upon which his chariots and cavalry could maneuver with deadly efficiency. Alexander's captains observed the Persian preparations, noting the sheer scale of the forces arrayed against them. Faint murmurs spread through the ranks as men spoke of facing unimaginable odds. Yet, when they caught a glimpse of their youthful king, clad in shining armor, brimming with confidence, their spirits soared. Alexander's unwavering gaze emboldened them. Many who followed him had done so for years, from the dusty roads of Asia Minor to the steep passes of the Taurus Mountains, and their trust in him was absolute. That night, despite the tension crackling in the air, Alexander did not drive his men into a sleepless frenzy. Instead, he insisted they rest and prepare themselves for the coming trial. Darius, by contrast, ordered his troops to remain on high alert, fearing a nocturnal strike. Throughout the Persian lines, torches flickered, watchmen stood vigilant, and the pounding of thousands of hooves echoed in the gloom. The Macedonians, concealed in the darkness, rested. Their leader knew that clarity of mind and physical vigor were paramount to victory. In those still hours, the silent prayers of soldiers rose to the heavens. Some called upon the Olympian gods, others on the deities of Persia, while many simply reflected on their families, far away in humble villages. Both armies, in their own manner, beseeched divine favor. Destiny, however, would soon be decided by action and valor on the battlefield. Morning dawned over Gaugamela, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink. The air crackled with anticipation. Darius, seated atop a regal chariot, decorated with royal insignia, surveyed the sprawling host he had assembled. Cavalry from distant provinces flanked him, fierce Scythian horsemen known for their deadly archery, Bactrian riders, and the famed Persian aristocracy clad in ornate armor. In front of them waited rows of heavily armed infantry and, strategically placed, the scythed chariots readied for a crushing charge. Opposite this seemingly invincible juggernaut, Alexander and his generals prepared for battle. His trusted Companion Cavalry, led by officers he had known since youth, formed up on the right. The Macedonian phalanx, bristling with long sarissa pikes, occupied the center, while lighter skirmishers, archers, and allied Greek cavalry secured the flanks. Alexander's plan was deceptively straightforward. He needed to draw the Persian lines to commit, to open a gap, or reveal a weakness he could exploit. He deliberately angled his forces to the right, seeking to lure Darius's cavalry away from the phalanx. Standing out from the ranks, the war machines of Persia were a spectacle to behold. The scythed chariots, some harnessed with teams of powerful horses, sported whirling blades affixed to their wheels. They promised to slice through enemy ranks with nightmarish efficiency. War elephants from India, though fewer in number than at other battles, added another frightening dimension. The Macedonian soldiers had never before encountered beasts of such scale on the battlefield. The elephant's mere presence was enough to unsettle the bravest of hearts. Yet, Alexander, confident in his men's discipline, planned to handle these threats meticulously, by allowing gaps in the lines for the chariots to rush through, and by using skirmishers armed with javelins to frighten and distract the elephants. The ranks thundered as the armies advanced. The Persian front lines began to close in like the jaws of a colossal beast. Dust clouds rose from thousands of feet and hooves, forming an almost impenetrable haze across the plain. The sun climbed higher, shining relentlessly, and the clamor of war drums, trumpet blasts, and shouted commands united in a deafening chorus. On the Persian side, the first wave of scythed chariots launched forward, propelled by charioteers who lashed their horses into a frenzy. The Macedonian front lines parted in carefully orchestrated maneuvers, allowing the chariots to pass through corridors. Quick-footed skirmishers darted in, flinging javelins at the panicked horses, unseating drivers, and halting many chariots before they could wreak havoc. Still, a few of these machines tore into the Macedonian ranks, causing screams of pain and fear as the blades cut through flesh and armor. But the disciplined formation swiftly closed the gaps, neutralizing the threat with minimal disruption. Darius, watching from his vantage, signaled a massive cavalry assault on his left, aiming to envelop the Macedonian right flank. Alexander anticipated this move. The Macedonian king had posted agile and loyal allied cavalry units there with instructions to delay the Persian horsemen. The resulting struggle was fierce. Hooves pounded the earth, swords clashed, and men cried out in pain or triumph. Dust and swirling chaos accompanied the melee, but the Macedonian cavalry skillfully withdrew in short increments, luring more and more Persian horsemen away from the center, away from the key focal point of the main battle. Simultaneously, the Macedonian phalanx surged forward against the Persian center. 6 brigades, each bristling with lengthy pikes, moved like a living fortress. The Persian infantry, though numerous and courageous, struggled to penetrate this porcupine-like formation. Their shorter spears and swords proved disadvantageous against the unrelenting reach of the sarissas. Momentum rippled through the phalanx, pushing back pockets of Persian levies, even as Persian archers rained arrows down upon them from afar. The thick forest of pikes, coupled with the tight discipline of the Macedonian foot soldiers, formed an almost impenetrable shield that advanced steadily. Yet the Persian lines did not yield so easily. Flanking maneuvers developed as more cavalry poured into the fray. On Alexander's left, Parmenion, one of Alexander's most trusted generals, found himself hard-pressed. The Persian right wing, leveraging superior numbers, advanced with brutal force, threatening to swing around and strike the phalanx from behind. At the same time, war elephants lumbered forth, causing havoc among the Macedonian ranks. The uncertain braying of these beasts, combined with the pounding of drums, shook the ground, fracturing the nerve of some men. Nevertheless, under Parmenion's calm leadership, the left flank of the Macedonian army performed a stubborn defense. Soldiers formed ranks with deliberate composure, slipping in and out of the swirling turmoil of cavalry engagements. Skirmishers emerged from behind the phalanx, throwing javelins at the elephants' vulnerable handlers. Others utilized flaming arrows, hoping to incite panic among the pachyderms. The elephants, distressed and bleeding, turned uncontrollable. Some even charged back into their own lines, causing confusion in the Persian rear. All the while, Alexander waited for the perfect moment to strike. Observing that Darius's attention was split between the flanking cavalry battle and the attempts to break the Macedonian phalanx, Alexander regrouped his companions, preparing for a decisive charge. He recognized that if he could seize the heart of the battlefield and threaten Darius himself, the Persian king might lose his nerve. Raising his sword high, Alexander roared an order that echoed across the chaotic plain. With unwavering resolve, the Companion Cavalry thrust forward like a lance aimed directly at the Persian center right, where the King of Kings stood upon his ornate chariot. The sun glanced off their armor, creating a brilliant flash that seemed to herald impending doom. Hooves hammered the earth, sending shockwaves of dust and grit into the air. The roar of battle intensified as hundreds of horsemen, masters of their craft, crashed into the Persian lines, shattering infantry formations and scattering lesser cavalry units. Darius watched the catastrophe unfold before his eyes. Macedonians were slicing through the ranks, unstoppable in their momentum. Panic coursed through the Persian lines as soldiers frantically tried to hold back the cavalry charge. Yet, the impetus was too great. Alexander, positioned at the forefront, radiated an aura of near-divine purpose. His men, inspired by his fearless leadership, fought as though the gods themselves imbued them with strength. Witnessing the onslaught and seeing how quickly the tide was turning, Darius realized that the fate of his empire hung precariously in the balance. Fear crept into his heart. Memories of past defeats, such as the Battle of Issus, resurfaced with vivid clarity. Could he once again fall prey to the cunning and determination of this younger, bolder Macedonian? In that charged moment, Darius's resolve faltered. As the Companion Cavalry neared him, cutting down layers of Persian defenders, the King of Kings lost his nerve. He spurred his chariot away from the battlefield, seeking sanctuary in flight. The Persian ranks, seeing their king retreat, experienced a wave of panic. Discouragement spread like an infection, sapping the will of many soldiers to continue fighting. Some units, particularly the elite immortals and a number of cavalry contingents, fought on valiantly, but the psychological blow of seeing their sovereign flee proved devastating. Men began to desert en masse, trampling each other in their desperation to flee. However, not all was well for Alexander's army. Parmenion's left flank was still in severe danger, swamped by the Persian right wing. Many Macedonians lay injured or dead, and those who remained faced the possibility of encirclement. The dust was thick with the stench of sweat, blood, and the acrid tang of fear. Messengers rode to Alexander, urging him to rescue the beleaguered general. Alexander, despite his inclination to chase the fleeing Darius and deliver a final, crushing blow, made the pivotal decision to turn back and support Parmenion. This move highlighted Alexander's awareness that a victory could still slip through his fingers if his left flank was overrun. Speeding across the battlefield with a detachment of the Companion Cavalry, Alexander crashed into the Persian horsemen besieging Parmenion. The sudden appearance of the king and his elite cavalry reinvigorated Macedonian spirits. The renewed vigor of the defenders quickly reversed the tide, halting the Persian assault. The battered Persian cavalry, upon hearing that Darius had already abandoned the field, began to withdraw. Order dissolved into chaos, and soon the entire Persian right flank was in retreat. One by one, pockets of Persian resistance collapsed. The battlefield became a grim tableau of bodies, broken chariots, dying horses, and shattered arms. A cloud of dust and smoke hung low over the carnage, as final skirmishes flared and died. The sun, once high in the sky, had begun its slow descent, casting elongated shadows across Gaugamela. In the aftermath, Alexander's forces, though exhausted, triumphed. They had shattered what remained of the Persian army, paving the way for the Macedonian king to seize Babylon, Susa, and eventually Persepolis, the heart of the Persian Empire. Gaugamela would forever remain a monumental turning point, marking the decline of one superpower and the meteoric ascendancy of another. The cost of victory was steep. Thousands of soldiers lay dead or wounded on both sides. The battlefield was littered with the debris of war: twisted chariot wheels, broken sarissas, abandoned shields, and lifeless bodies. Macedonian phalangites, battered and drenched in sweat and blood, walked among the carnage, searching for wounded comrades and collecting enemy spoils. Amidst the sorrow and ruin, pride and exhilaration mingled. Alexander, standing amid his generals, surveyed the wreckage with a mix of gravity and satisfaction. For all his ambition, he was not oblivious to the human toll. His men had fought valiantly and merited both rest and reward. He arranged for the immediate care of the wounded, distributed praise and monetary prizes to his faithful soldiers, and performed rites to honor those who had fallen in battle. Darius, now a fugitive, fleeing deeper into the Persian heartland, struggled with shame and despair. His empire was crumbling around him. Uncertainty consumed both Persian soldiers and civilians, as rumors spread that the victorious Macedonians would march onward to claim the empire's fabled cities. Some among Darius's entourage saw the writing on the wall. Disloyalty festered, conspiracies brewed, and the precarious throne of the King of Kings trembled from the shockwaves of defeat. Yet, the significance of Gaugamela transcended the immediate ramifications. Indeed, it was not just another battle. It was a pivotal juncture in the annals of warfare. The conflict showcased Alexander's brilliance as a commander, blending tactical flexibility with unwavering leadership. Where other generals might have been cowed by the sheer size of Darius's forces, Alexander turned adversity to advantage. Where lesser leaders might have succumbed to fear, he inspired devotion and boldness. The legacy of Gaugamela would be dissected and studied by military minds for centuries to come, shaping the strategies and doctrines of empires yet unborn. By forging a new path across the conquered territories, Alexander aimed to assimilate Persian nobility and culture into his burgeoning empire. To the astonishment of many, the young conqueror did not always plunder and destroy. Rather, he often sought cooperation and unity. In Babylon, he spared temples, respected local customs, and presented himself as a liberator. He understood that mere conquest was fleeting unless accompanied by statesmanship. Over time, he adapted elements of Persian dress and ceremony, blending cultures in ways that sowed the seeds of Hellenistic civilization, whose influence would resonate across continents. Nevertheless, the memory of Gaugamela took a different form for the Persians. It stood as a painful testament to the empire's vulnerability and to Darius's failure to harness the full potential of his resources. The meticulous leveling of the battlefield, the monstrous chariots, and the combined might of countless cavalry failed to subdue the disciplined Macedonians. Critics claimed the Persian camp had become a cumbersome mass of men and animals with little sense of unified purpose. They pointed out that while the Persians may have boasted numerical superiority, they lacked an equivalent single-minded leadership and the integrated tactics that Alexander embodied. The ease with which the Persian army dissolved once Darius fled reflected the fragile underpinnings of an empire stretched too thin and reliant on local satrapies. But for those who had witnessed the day's events firsthand, the grand tragedy of Gaugamela was seared into memory. The rank-and-file soldiers, be they Macedonian or Persian, carried scars both visible and invisible. Some relived in their dreams the deafening roar of cavalry charges, the shrieks of wounded comrades, and the relentless advance of pike formations. Veterans would recount around campfires how the king himself galloped past them, his cloak billowing in the wind, sword raised high, unstoppable and resolute. Poets and bards would craft songs and epics, praising heroic deeds, lamenting the fallen, and highlighting Alexander's near-mythical ascendancy. In the weeks following the battle, Alexander wasted no time. He pressed onward, claiming major Persian cities nearly uncontested. Babylon, renowned for its ziggurats, hanging gardens, and cultural opulence, opened its gates without a fight. The local populations, long accustomed to different rulers, witnessed Alexander's relative clemency and discipline, which often contrasted with the cruelty other conquerors might have shown. After ensuring Babylon's peaceful integration, Alexander pushed east to the wealthy city of Susa and eventually to Persepolis, the ceremonial capital of the Persian Empire. There, he seized immense treasures that dwarfed anything seen before by the Macedonians. The city's palaces, carved reliefs, and grand halls spoke volumes about the empire's glory. But the conqueror's darker impulses also emerged. The city was eventually sacked and partially burned, an act historians would debate for millennia. Whether it was an impulsive gesture of revenge for Persian invasions of Greece a century earlier, or a calculated move to break the spirit of the empire once and for all. Back in Macedonia and in the wider Hellenic world, news of the victory at Gaugamela stirred an outpouring of excitement. Few had expected Alexander's campaign to yield such a world-altering triumph. Intellectuals, statesmen, and common citizens alike found themselves enthralled by the unstoppable tide of Macedonian conquest. The once mighty Persian Empire, a dominant force since the days of Cyrus the Great, now lay prostrate before the will of Alexander. Many Greek city-states that had once resisted Macedonian hegemony now grudgingly admitted the brilliance of the young king. Meanwhile, Alexander's ambitions grew. Gaugamela had effectively unlocked the gates to Asia, and Alexander felt compelled to journey ever further to the fringes of the known world. His restless spirit and insatiable curiosity would carry him and his army through deserts, into the mountains of Central Asia, and beyond the Indus River. Yet, no matter how many campaigns he waged, no matter how many victories he secured, few battles would ever eclipse the scale and historical importance of the showdown at Gaugamela. In the ephemeral quiet moments that occasionally punctuated his whirlwind conquests, Alexander might have reflected on the day he faced Darius on those plains of Mesopotamia. Perhaps he recalled how the sun blazed on that fateful morning, how the dust clouds enveloped the field, and how the roar of the Companion Cavalry drove terror into the heart of the Persian line. No matter the expansions or alliances that came after, Gaugamela symbolized the apex of his strategic genius, and the moment the great king of Persia lost both the battle and, in essence, his empire. For the Persian satraps and generals who survived, Gaugamela was not only a defeat, but a rebuke that destroyed the illusion of royal invincibility. Some turned traitor, seeking to curry favor with Alexander. Others, bound by loyalty to Darius, continued resisting, hoping to rally an army strong enough to reclaim the empire's dignity. But with each passing day and each city lost, the corridors of possibility narrowed. The unstoppable Macedonian tide had been unleashed, and it would not be contained by half measures or belated unity. In the deserts and mountain passes where Darius's loyalists made their final stand, they did so with the knowledge that the empire's golden age had likely ended. The weight of the victory at Gaugamela extended beyond the immediate battlefield. Alexander's methods of warfare, coordinated use of phalanx, cavalry, specialized skirmishers, and intelligence, set precedents for generations to come. Historically, it confirmed the shift of power from the old Eastern empires to the dynamic states of the West, though in Alexander's vision, East and West would unify. His empire was short-lived, fragmenting after his untimely death, yet the cultural fusion it sparked outlived him. Greek knowledge, art, and language mingled with Persian traditions, fostering an era of dynamic exchange that shaped civilizations across the Middle East, Central Asia, and the Mediterranean. Today, historians continue to dissect the chain of events that led to Darius's defeat and the subsequent unraveling of the Achaemenid Empire. Some highlight the personal failings of Darius, his inability to inspire confidence, his decision to retreat prematurely, and his underestimation of Alexander's tactical prowess. Others emphasize the extraordinary willpower and determination that Alexander instilled in his men. He was more than just a conqueror. He was a charismatic figure who believed wholeheartedly in his own destiny as a world ruler and possessed the skill to make it real. But perhaps the most striking lesson of Gaugamela is the reminder that a single day of battle can unravel centuries of tradition and herald a new epoch. Regardless of the empire in question, no realm is guaranteed permanence. The cyclical dance of rising and falling powers persists. In 331 BC, on a dusty plain under a relentless sun, the ancient world watched as one empire crumbled, another rose, and humanity stepped into a new era of shared cultures and shifting boundaries. Above all, Gaugamela stands as a testament to ambition, ingenuity, and the unpredictable fortunes of war. The battlefield, once soaked in blood, eventually returned to its silent existence under the Mesopotamian sky. Generations passed, empires rose and fell, but the echoes of that day still reverberate in every telling. The brilliance of Alexander, the might of Darius, and the courageous sacrifices of thousands of unnamed warriors remain etched into the collective memory of civilization. In the end, their stories blend into one grand narrative of how a single confrontation can alter the trajectory of the world.